Good evening and welcome to the March 20th, 2023 meeting of the Hammond Capital Improvement Board. Will you please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Moore. Muda.
Here.
Prieto.
Here.
Spitali.
Here.
Tyler.
Here.
Warple.
Here.
Button.
Here, let the record reflect, we have 6 present and 1 absent. Next item on the agenda is item 4, consideration of the past meeting minutes. Board, you should have received a copy of the meeting minutes in your meeting packet. Is there a motion to approve?
Make a motion to approve.
Commissioner Prieto makes a motion. Is there a second? Second by Councilman Spitali. It's been moved and properly seconded. Past meeting minutes. Is there any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Roll call on the motion.
Moore. Muda.
Yes.
Prieto.
Yes.
Spitali.
Yes.
Tyler.
Yes.
Warple.
Yes.
Button.
Yes, motion carries, 6 present and 1 absent. Next item is 5, report on the work study session. Immediately prior to this meeting at 4:30, approximately, the board met to discuss the agenda items and new business that are not listed on the agenda. Any other discussion? Any other comment? Thank you. Item 6 is funding. Our city controller is not present, so there will be no report on funding. Item 7 is matter from mayors, council, and other departments. See, we have Councilman Torres and Councilman Kowinski present in the audience. Thank you. For the record, Councilman Torres submitted a list to the Capital Improvements Board of the items listed for paving or reconstruction. Thank you, Councilman.
You want to say what they are so I can write them down? Never mind.
Okay, I didn't give a copy to you.
My bad.
You're fine.
You just gave me a look like I slowed the meeting down. Thank you.
Good evening, Board. That's just my wish list, but I'm especially here to thank the Board for their efforts, especially the Chairman for Summer Street. Total of $14 million that the people on Sherman and Summer are real happy about. And be even happier when you see a payloader started digging and working on the street. But people are asking for those streets to be done, and I've submitted them before, but to pacify them, I'm going to ask again. So thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Councilman. Any other comment? Oh, Councilman Kowinski.
Good afternoon.
Hi.
At the last meeting, I believe I provided a couple of streets for resurfacing. Wondered if you had made any determinations about what streets will get resurfaced. And I want to add one more, and I can do that in writing if that's necessary. But Caroline Street in Robertsdale is in real bad shape along Forsyth Park. And I noticed that when I was driving the district yesterday looking at various streets. So I'd like to add that to the list as a possibility. Thank you.
Thank you. Very good candidate. Thank you.
Is that Caroline in its entirety?
Yeah, I would say yes. Caroline in its entirety from Stewart Court to Park View. Couldn't agree more, Councilman, on Caroline.
I'm sorry?
Could not agree with you more on Caroline. It's in horrible condition. And I think it's a good candidate for resurfacing. Okay, any other matters from mayor, council, or other departments? Seeing none, item 8 is old business. Any old business? No. Item 9 is new business. 5 actions for the board's consideration. Each action would be contingent upon mayor's approval. The mayor has not had an opportunity to sign these, and so I would only ask that you approve this upon contingent upon his definite approval. If he does not approve it, I would withdraw these requests. I will also say that City Controller Megan Moore has approved each and every one of these funding allocations to this point. The first item is funding allocation for security, video surveillance for City Hall. This board had, well, let me ask for a motion. So first funding allocation is a City Hall video surveillance supplemental with Vermilion Systems in the amount of $2,119.20. Is there a motion to approve?
So move.
Commissioner Muda is asking to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Prieto. It's been moved and properly seconded for subject funding allocation. Any discussion? This board had approved the purchase for 4 new video camera surveillance systems, or the cameras themselves at City Hall. 2 of them were high-resolution video cameras to face the parking lot in light of vandalism that happened on 2 of our city vehicles, the theft of our catalytic converters. And so it was recognized that we needed high-resolution video, and so those were approved by this board. The vendor didn't realize that by upgrading those 2 cameras, we didn't have the software compatible to meet that resolution, and so they admitted that they had omitted that, and the cost of the upgraded software is $2,200, and they are waiving any charge related to labor charge related to configuring the system. And so we would have had to pay this fee anyway, and we would have been charged the labor to do so. And so based upon that consideration, I would ask the board to highly consider this request. Is there any other discussion? Any other discussion? Roll call on the motion.
Moore, Muda,
Yes.
Prieto,
Yes.
Spitali. Yes. Tyler,
Yes.
Warple,
Yes.
Button.
Yes, motion carries, 6 present and 1 absent. Item 2 is a funding allocation for 177th, 179th Street reconstruction local match with Reith Riley Construction in the amount of $860,999.40. Is there a motion? It's been moved by Councilman Werpel. Is there a second?
Second.
I think that was Councilman Spitali. It's been moved and properly seconded for 177th, 179th reconstruction local match. Is there any discussion? So we're asking for you to approve this action contingent upon the mayor's approval to fund the 50% match portion of the project that was recently bid by the Board of Public Works and Safety to Reith Riley Construction. The total project cost is $1,721,998.80. The amount represents 50%, which is funded through the Community Crossings Matching Grant Program that NDOT has available and Hammond was awarded. The grant is contingent that we have a fully executed agreement with the construction contractor in hand by April 6th, and we prove that to the Indiana Department of Transportation, and that is the reason for the urgent request, because we will not meet again until after this, or at or about the time this request is required and fully executed by the Board of Public Works and Safety. Is there any other discussion? Any other discussion? Roll call on the motion.
Moore, Muda,
Yes.
Prieto,
Yes.
Spitali.
Yes.
Tyler,
Yes.
Warple,
Yes.
Button.
Yes, motion carries, 6 present and 1 absent. Item 3 is funding allocation 177th to 179th Street Reconstruction Construction Engineering with HWC Engineering in the amount of $115,200. Is there a motion to approve? Councilman Werpel makes a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Prieto. It's been moved and properly seconded to approve the funding allocation. Is there any discussion? This is an agreement to fund, well, it's a funding allocation to fund the construction engineering services with HWC Engineering, who is the design engineer. HWC has about $20,000 remaining in their design contract and would be able to carry that over into the full cost of the construction engineering contract. So the portion that you're approving is the difference between the shortfall of what's left in the design contract, or $115,200. This is for construction engineering to observe the contract that you had, funding allocation that you had just approved is also contingent upon the mayor's approval. Is there any other discussion? Any other discussion? Roll call on the motion.
Moore, Muda,
Yes.
Prieto,
Yes.
Spitali.
Yes.
Tyler,
Yes.
Warple,
Yes.
Button.
Yes, motion carries, 6 present and 1 absent. Item 4, if I am counting properly, is funding allocation with Chicago Street right-of-way dedication, exhibits, and assistance supplemental agreement with First Group Engineering in the amount of $22,306 and no cents. Is there a motion to approve?
Make motion.
Councilman Spitali, is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Muda. It's been moved and properly seconded to approve the funding allocation for Chicago Street supplemental agreement with First Group. Is there any discussion? This board approved a funding allocation for Chicago Street right-of-way dedication, exhibits, and assistance to create the formal right-of-way of the new Goslin Street between Sheffield and State Line. There were 2 options, one to include the existing utility that runs along the south side or south of the sidewalk running east and west on Goslin Street, or to move the dedicated right-of-way to the back of the sidewalk, as common in Hammond projects, and move the utility from behind the sidewalk and make room for the transit-oriented development district around the Hammond train station, Gateway Station. And it was the administration's decision to go ahead and get the utility relocated. And so in order to do that, we're hiring First Group to do the utility coordination services in an amount not to exceed $22,306. There is at least one utility, AT&T, that's in the way. I'm certain that we can do this work in less amount than $22,300, but this was the estimated amount to do the work. There will be a future relocation cost by AT&T because they're in right-of-way that they're allowed to be in, and that's a cost that we would have to pay for anyway. And so you would look to see a future cost to AT&T and any other utilities that might be located along that pole alignment, that they're allowed to be there. Hope that's clear. Is there any other discussion? Any other discussion? Roll call on the motion.
Moore, Muda,
Yes.
Prieto,
Yes.
Spitali.
Yes.
Tyler,
Yes.
Warple,
Yes.
Button.
Yes, motion carries, 6 present and 1 absent. Last item I have for you today for your consideration is funding allocation, Chicago Street Phase 2, change orders number 12 through 16 with the Indiana Department of Transportation in the amount of $31,339.30. Is there a motion to approve?
So
So moved.
second.
It's Been moved by Councilman Werpel and properly seconded by Commissioner Muta for the funding allocation for Chicago Street Phase 2. Thank you, Chris. Is there any discussion? So you have five change orders listed here from water service repairs to manhole reconstruction to sanitary service repairs to a utility conflict with a modification to a new doghouse manhole, and most importantly, the balancing change order for the entire project of Phase 2, which represents, thankfully, the completion of the entire Chicago Street project for your consideration. This amount represents a 20% local match. The total amount of the change orders is $156,696.51, which is 80% is funded through an agreement with the Northwestern Indiana Regional Planning Commission, and the amount you're considering for approval contingent upon the mayor's approval is the 20% match, local match. Is there any other discussion? Any other discussion? Roll call on the motion.
Moore, Muta,
Yes.
Prieto,
Yes.
Spitali. Yes. Tyler,
Yes.
Warple,
Yes.
Button.
Yes, motion carries, 6 present and 1 absent. There's no one signed in for public expression. This is the opportunity.
I'm sorry.
Sure, public expression, item 10. Go ahead, Councilman.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
You know, I think a while back, we used to get a packet from the CIB, agenda, minutes, et cetera. I don't believe we've been receiving that. We have been receiving that.
That comes from the clerk's office.
In paper or online?
Online, in your email.
So, but not paper? Okay. Can we get it in paper too?
I have no objection.
I mean, we get it in almost every other board. We do, you know, we get minutes both ways. If it's possible, we'd appreciate it.
That makes sense to me, Councilman.
I know I'm on the board, but I do have a question. Because I'm kind of confused, and I know there's some confusion on the council. How do we go about doing the overlays, and how do those, I mean, does it come quarterly, just depending on how much money we get, or how does that process work then?
Well,
Because I know we've all submitted streets, and I mean, I'm not saying they don't get done, it's just that I think that some of us think there's a time frame on that stuff. Is there, or does it just depend on the funding?
well, I can explain what happened last year,
Okay.
certainly as a courtesy to you, sir, because you were not on the board last year, and I can sympathize with that. So, prior to the formation of this board, the city was spending at a rate of approximately $2.4 million annually for resurfacing. Obviously, COVID hit, and no resurfacing was done in 2020. In 2021, we spent about $2 million in resurfacing. Last year, we were limited at $1 million. So you can see that we've been, you know, I hate to say neglecting, but we've been neglecting road resurfacings over the last 3 years. There's no question, and I'm scrambling to try to find money, but that's not really your question, right? So
Is there a certain amount that's budgeted to it, or does it just depend on what our draw is every quarter?
So we're funding the projects that we have to fund, and what's left over, we're trying to fund with resurfacing, right? We have sidewalk programs, crack sealing programs, and funding road resurfacing projects. So last year, for example, we had, so first of all, the engineering department collects, every 2 years, collects information on all the streets in Hammond to determine its classification, how good the street is, whether it needs a resurfacing or crack seal or reconstruction. So we've rated all of our streets, and then we ask the councilman because we respect the council position that they're in and that you've been in that position for a long time, making those selections, using council district gaming to fund those. And so we'd like to hear, engineering would like to hear from the council members what their priorities are, and then we'll do our very best to manage those priorities. So last year, we funded less than half of the program that we had normally funded, and we selected a list of projects that we could complete, we thought we could complete, and then we had to pare those down because we only had $1 million. And I know that there was a lot of, dissatisfaction by council that we didn't complete as many as we did, but we just didn't have the leftover funds available. And it's a shame that we look at resurfacing as leftover funds.
Right.
But I'm trying to figure out how to manage those expectations. So we would ask for your input, right? That's your question. We want to hear from you what your goals are, what you think needs to be done. We'll compare to the list that engineering has and see if it's a candidate for resurfacing, like Caroline, and we'll work to get that work done.
2 questions. Is that me? Is there a timeline? Like, I know Councilman Kowinski said that he wanted to know the status of it, and so has Councilman Torres. I mean, it's not you submit it one week and we're making a decision the next, correct? I mean, what would you say, like, once it's submitted, does it take 3 months, does it take a quarter of gaming to meet those funds?
Well, I would hope not. Well, for your timeline-wise or funding-wise?
Timeline, funding,
Timeline,
whatever.
it shouldn't take that long, but keep in mind that we're not hearing from all the councilmen at the same time, right? We got, we're hoping that, and maybe as an engineer, as the representative of the engineering department, I should be asking, what are your lists? And I need your list as soon as I can, because the paving season is short, right? Paving starts in April, right, in a couple weeks, and it goes through about Thanksgiving, optimistically, probably more like end of September, right? So we have a limited window on when we can pave, and the earlier we know about it, the better. But to be honest, I haven't focused on that. I need to get these requests in so we can sort of manage those. But if you have requests for resurfacing, let me know what those are, and we'll do the best we can to get them completed.
Now, my next question. I know it took me a while to understand it when I first got here, but as part of resurfacing, sidewalks and cutting down trees are part of the bid on resurfacing, correct? And now here's the question. You know how I do it. I farm that out. If a street's going to be repaved, I go to the sidewalk program to do the sidewalks, and I go to the tree program to do the trees, so we're just getting a cost for the repaving itself.
So historically, resurfacing, we do curb ramps. We don't make improvements to the city sidewalks unless we go to the sidewalk program as we did on the cul-de-sac at Delaware.
Right.
Right, where we wholesale replaced sidewalks on that street. That's pretty unusual. When we do a resurfacing, we do the road and the curb ramps. We don't do isolated sidewalk repairs. When council district pays for street lighting projects, we will fix sidewalks and curb ramps and signs and pavement markings.
I think the reason I brought up the tree program was that same, by St. John Bosco there were trees that were actually tearing up the street. And I think that was part of the bid. Isn't that what happened? It was part of the bid, and it was like $1,500 a tree or something like that. So we farmed them to the tree program, correct?
That does happen from time to time. I don't know if that was, that happens.
Yes, the question then is, in the cases like that, if, say, I had a street I wanted done, and there's sidewalks that need to be done there as part of, the curb ramps and all that, and the trees, is it speed up the process to farm that stuff out, is the question I'm asking.
We will try to coordinate as much as we can to complete that sort of work, right? We will do what we can, but normally, we won't go do sidewalks on a street resurfacing, right? We'll have to come back and pick that up as a sidewalk. Because while the contractor's doing some concrete work, we're focused on trying to get the mill and overlays done.
Thank you.
And doing the sidewalks under a different contractor.
No, the reason I asked is I'm confused on it too,
I'm happy to talk to you at length at this.
No, I just,
offline, too. Okay.
Better to ask than not to, right?
Okay. Any other public
Told me
comment?
I asked too many questions.
Good discussion, thank you.
Thank you.
If there's nothing further, the next meeting of the Hammond Capital Improvement Board will be Monday, April 3rd. And if there's nothing further for this board, I'd ask for a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion.
So moved.
All in favor signify by
Like
saying
saying
aye.
so moved.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries.